Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner. This podcast is all about taking a few moments for yourself and reconnecting to the amazing woman behind the title of mom. You have so many plates spinning at any given time between your kids, your partner, your job, maintaining a household, etc., etc. But where does taking time just for you play into that? Let's spend some time together, you and me, right now. We're rebranding a mom moment to those sacred moments you take to fill your cup first. Let's connect, tune in, and tap into what makes us the incredible women that we are. We'll nurture ourselves first so we can be our best selves for those we pour into on a daily basis. We'll also bask in the beautiful wisdom of other moms to learn about the ways in which they've tapped into alignment in their own motherhood journeys. Come on, mama, it's your time. We're having a mom moment. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another replay of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. Thank you again for the continued grace and space for me to take the pause from new guest episodes and replay some juicy ones. Before we hop into the replay, I do want to remind you that the 2024 Tune In and Tune Up is coming in February. We'll begin on February 5th. And we will meet 1 hour each week for 4 weeks. If you cannot attend live, no worries. There will be replays available for you. And we're going to really tap into where did we end up at the end of 2023 and thinking about what went right, what didn't go so right, and how we can use that to set intentions for the new year. Because we get one go at this life. And if you're anything like me, you realize as we get older, the years are just flying by. I don't want any of us to wake up one day and go, oh my gosh, where was my life? What happened? Where did it go? I didn't do any of it for me. I don't even know that I like who I am or where I am right now. If you have been kind of in that cycle already where you're going, I don't really love this, we're going to stop. But first, in this month of January, I want you to take the time to pause wherever you need to, just like I'm doing right now, and go inward, rest, do what things in nature in winter do. We are not meant to be go, go, go all the time, which again is exactly why I am pausing. We are not machines. Head to the link in the show notes for all the details and to sign up. This week, I'm replaying an episode with my guest, Abby Hildebrand. Abby is a Trauma-Informed Breathwork Facilitator, Human Development Specialist, and Perinatal Mental Health Advocate. This conversation is so wonderful. Not only do we talk about breathwork, what it is, what it does, but we also talk about becoming a mom and things that we would have done differently, knowing now what we did not know then, and the ways in which we change physiologically once we have a baby. We don't know a lot of this going into it the first time. And Abby so beautifully also reminds us that we are inherently worthy just because we woke up this morning, and we are not the things that we do. So I really hope you enjoyed this replay. If you didn't catch it the first time, or it's worth another listen. It's a really beautiful conversation, and Abby is such a beautiful soul. Hi, Abby. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
I love to have my guests start by sharing their own motherhood journey. So would you mind sharing a little bit about yours?
Sure. So mine first started in 2015. My partner and I got pregnant by accident. And in the same weekend that we found out that we got pregnant, we also lost the baby.
Oh gosh.
Which was, it was a lot to carry, but it wasn't something that was like present in our world where we were like necessarily actively trying. And it was something that we didn't really think was in the cards for us because I had a couple of medical things going on. And so we had sort of, chalked our lives up to, we live a really great life. We're having lots of adventures. If we get pregnant, cool. And if not, then that's okay too. But then when the reality of, we get pregnant, but then it doesn't come to fruition, it's like, oh, this is a bigger thing actually than I thought it was going to be, a bigger deal for me. that really weighed on me for a lot of years. And right in 2015, it's about the same time that we suffered a few other losses just in our family.
Mm.
And because all this other stuff was going on, we didn't really like fully process it. I think it was kind of like, this is sad, this is hard, we have other things to do. And both my husband and I are doers in our lives. So we're very much a like, how do we push through? How do we move through? Or I'll say we were that way.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to 2019, we get pregnant again. So in that 4 years, we didn't get pregnant at all. 2019 was when we really were like, throw the cards to the wind and like, let's just live this beautiful life that we have in front of us. And that's when we got pregnant. December 25th of 2019, Christmas Day, our beautiful daughter Elizabeth was born.
Aww.
3 a.m. It was a pretty tumultuous birth experience where we had to go for an emergency C-section and there was some scary things happening, but then she popped out and she was incredible and perfect and wonderful. And I had this weird guilt that was like from 2015 of like, am I allowed to love this baby? Am I allowed to even have this baby? And it kind of spiraled into postpartum anxiety and bouts of depression through that postpartum journey. So my motherhood journey, all that to say, did not start the way I thought it was going to.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, when I was a kid and I'd picture myself being a mom, I didn't think about any of that stuff. I was just like,
Right.
What it would be like to take the kids to school or take them to Disneyland or that kind of stuff. So I just never really thought about what I would do when times got hard or that I might not feel deserving of even having a child and how to deal with that kind of emotion, because I definitely was a feel your feelings quick and let's move on person. And so it was a lot, because when you have that newborn, there's not anywhere to go. So there's kind of no choice but to feel the feelings, right? So I was really confronted with that in the beginning. Wow. So that felt like a lot to put on you early in our conversation.
No, I welcome it. And I think you brought in some really good points. Is so many of us, when we picture having children, we don't picture all of the lead up, the losses or anything else, or the anticipation or the struggle to get pregnant and all of that. And we're not prepared for that. Most of us, I would think, unless maybe there's somewhere in your family where people are struggling with infertility or losses or whatever, but I don't know how one prepares for that.
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot in the time since. And now Elizabeth she's turning 4 this year, and she's like high fire, bundle of energy, nonstop action. Like there's no shortage of aliveness in this beautiful creature that we have. And I've thought about like, how do you prepare moms? And even like when people ask you, oh, my friend is pregnant, what advice do you have for her? I'm like, oh gosh, am I the right person to ask? I'm not sure, because I read all the books when we finally got pregnant. I'm a researcher. I read every single book I could find. I, took all the webinars and did the prenatal classes. Yeah. But none of it was about postpartum anxiety and depression. Not one thing that I read that was put in front of me. I think if I had sought that out, thinking that this might be something that comes up in my world, then it's out there. But if you don't know what you don't know, right? So you don't know to look for it.
Right. I think all we had was like before we left the hospital, we had to watch a video and like sign a form, but we also had to watch something about like infant CPR and like don't shake the baby, and you're like checking the things and signing, and that's it. Yeah. And you're in Canada, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So here in the States, you get like in the standard system, you get 1 6-week postpartum checkup, and they're like, okay, you look okay, or you don't look okay, to like go back to normal with your activities of every kind. And are you feeling sad? Yes or no? And that's pretty much it.
And that's so wild. Like here we get a weekly checkup for the first month. And then I think, then I did another monthly checkup. I had a midwife. I was fortunate to have a midwife. So we got a little bit of extra care, but to think that no one's checking on you in that first 6 weeks, when it's like a day feels like a year.
Yeah.
6 weeks is a long time to just have to hold all of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then a lot of us here after 6 weeks, we're going back to work on top
Yeah.
of it. And it's like, yeah,
Wild.
the
It's
things that
wild.
you don't know how to even begin to prepare for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like, people joke about the lack of sleep when you become a mom, but like sleep deprivation is not a joke. You are not yourself if you haven't had that sleep, regardless of what kind of, like, I thought I'll be fine. I'm not really a sleeper, not, quotation
Yeah.
marks, because I would sleep like 4 hours a night kind of steadily. And then otherwise I was just tossing and turning. But like, nobody tells you that you don't even get 4 hours. You get like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Like you're sleeping in between feedings, and like what that does to a person is just, it's insane.
Yeah. And then when you do finally get a stretch, you wake up like, oh gosh, oh
What
no.
I miss, where's the
Yeah,
baby?
I
Who needs
know.
to eat?
I know. I know. Yeah. And all the things that go along with that as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're so right. And that's why I'm like really passionate about the space that I'm in. Aside from this podcast, I want to help women transition, specifically working women, help them transition into becoming working moms because
beautiful.
we don't have the support built in here. So
Yeah.
I had a conversation earlier today with another woman here in the States who she's her focus is a little farther down, like when women are, about a year plus out. And it's not specifically, but a little farther past where I'm working. And it's like the moms, at least in the States, are so fed up with there not being systemic care, postpartum care, that we're
Mhm.
just building it ourselves. We're like, forget it. We're just going to
Yeah.
create it ourselves because nobody else is doing it for us. So,
Yeah, I think it was so like I took a year maternity leave, and coming back after a year, somebody, you're at the water cooler, and I at the time worked for a really small company, and they came up and they said, "Oh, how was your time off?" Like as if I had like taken 2 weeks to go on vacation or something.
right, right.
And I just was like, I don't even know how to respond to that, because I wasn't even present for most of it, to be honest, because of
Yeah.
the postpartum anxiety and depression, but also just like to be so disconnected from all the things that your body has to go through, and then have this, now stranger who has not lived that kind of experience ask like, how was your time away, as if you had a nice
On a
vacation.
vacation.
It was
Yeah.
like, oh man, I've never wanted to slap a person.
Uh, I know. We get it here in the States too. In my first maternity leave, I was not wise enough at the time to take the 12 weeks that I was able to take because half was going to be unpaid. And I was concerned about the financial strain. And so I took 6 weeks. I was like, I'll be fine. Again, you don't know what you don't know. I was like, I'll be fine. I'll go back to work after 6 weeks. I couldn't even sit in my office chair all day. I was still in
Mm,
so much pain. And then everyone's like, yeah, how's your time off? Are you rested? Oh, aren't you so excited to be here? No.
yeah, it's wild. It's wild
It's
what's
absolutely
expected.
wild. Yeah, it's just so disappointing and almost enraging that these are the circumstances. Even at a year, I mean, I can't imagine having a year, but also if I had been home with my child for a year and then I had to leave, like how painful that would have been.
Yeah.
So,
I remember a friend telling me, and I'm going to get this wrong, so maybe fact check me on this, but I think it's in Belgium or Germany. And she said you get 3 years maternity leave. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Because like you said, like even a year, you're kind of just getting, well, at least for me, just getting my feet under me and like
Yes.
figuring out a rhythm. And like we didn't have daycare or anything until she was 2.
Mm,
And so I was like, yeah, 3 years makes so much more sense. They
yeah.
can do so much more at 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I had that too, I probably would have had my kids closer together. They're almost 5 years apart. And it was a very deliberate,
Yeah.
timing decision
Yeah.
on our part for a lot of reasons. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like the farther you get out, and then you're like, oh, do I really want to start over again? Like, oh, at a year, you feel a certain kind of way. And then at a couple of
Yeah.
years, you feel a little better. And then you're like, wait, I really want to start all over. Okay. So,
Yeah. We were definitely, when Elizabeth was born, we were like, we're one and done. That was great. We've done it. We could check it off the list. 2 years in, we're like, yeah, I'm still one and done. My husband was like, maybe she could have a sibling. And now she's almost 4. And we're like, do we try for another? And I'm kind of like going through what that process was like and how long it took me to feel like I could be in my body safely, that I
mm,
understood what I had the capacity for. And I'm like, just getting it now that I'm like, it's not a year of being pregnant. It's like 5 years
Right.
all in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good that you're so aware too, because I think I had blocked a lot of it out because the first year was hard for me. And then I had my own dip. I was not diagnosed, but I, looking back, realized I probably had some PPD that I was trying to push down. And that was around a little bit after the year mark. And it's like a lot of it was really hard. And I blocked it out. And now I'm being faced with it again. We've got a 19-month-old, and I'm just like, here we are. Here it is.
Yeah.
My experience has been better, but it's been a lot different. But yeah, I fully support anyone who decides they don't want to have children, who decides they want to have one and be done, or whatever. It's like, you got to do what's best for you, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we talk about what you do, who you are, what
Sure.
you're about? Yeah.
Sure. So I'm a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, which is because of my motherhood journey.
Mm,
In the postpartum counseling, my counselor gave me this breathwork tool, and I was like, does everybody know you can change things this quickly with just your breath? I don't have to, be on antidepressants, and I'm not against, I'm all for whatever supports you. For me, I had been on antidepressants and I didn't feel like myself. I just felt numb. And that was the same way that I felt when I was depressed too. So it just didn't make sense for me. But when I found breath work, it really shifted things for me, because I also had been such a doer my whole life that to actually pause and be was like a game changer.
yeah.
Understanding, like taking in and building my interoception skills, where I could understand, like, do I feel hungry? Do I feel cold? Do I feel tired? These were things that I had never stopped to ask myself. I had just pushed through them. And, you eat when my alarm goes off and tells me to eat because I have things to do. So now I get to take a breath with people to help them tune in and ground and settle, to build their own toolbox of things they can do, whether they're holding a crying baby or walking a crazy dog, ways to bring themselves in, ground and center. In the workplace, I do a lot of corporate work. Helping people, especially, post-pandemic, coming back into these work environments where we were literally told, if you breathe around someone else, you're going to die. People more and more sitting at their computers and finding themselves holding their breath.
Wow.
And so just helping them find, okay, how does my body work in the world again? What is my rhythm? How do I tune in and understand what I need, what my soma, my body needs? So that's the space I get to play in now, which is like similar. I think before we started talking, you shared, if you told me I would be doing this 6 months ago, I wouldn't have believed you. Ditto. If you'd have told me before I was pregnant that I would be doing this kind of work, I would have said, sure, you're crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm pretty new to the breathwork space. I've only had a couple of experiences inside of Kathy's containers. For those who have no idea what it is, can you dive into that a little bit?
Sure. So breathwork is consciously shifting the rhythm of our breath to support different experiences, to support different systems within. So our breath is part of our autonomic nervous system, meaning our body does it on its own. We don't have to think about it. And it's unique in that we can think about it and control it. It can support our digestive health, our reproductive health. It supports our intuition, our clarity, especially, moms experiencing that brain fog sensation, just ways to like clear away the debris so we can actually get to the root of what's happening around us. We're not just reacting to the things around us. So we can use our breath to directly influence how our nervous system is responding or not responding to things. There's a lot of different modalities of breath work. There's, holotropic breath work and Wim Hof and various styles. I practice pause breath work, which was founded by Samantha Skelly. And in pause, we use different patterns to really gently support the nervous system so that it feels safe. It's not an experience where you're, necessarily in a dark room and there's like shamanic drums beating. For me, that wasn't supportive. But what I really liked about the pause work was that it was something I could do while in conversation with someone to regulate myself and to co-regulate with my daughter. We breathe together a lot too, because she is that fiery energy. It really has been supportive in our relationship and being able to communicate.
I love that. Can we talk about that a little bit more? I think I need some of that with my kiddo.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't intend to start in her with, breathing with her, but children, they see us, they're watching us all the time. They mimic
Right.
what we do. And she would see me, and I was getting better through, my parenting journey at naming out loud what was going on for me. So she didn't just see mommy shut down. It was like, I'm feeling frustrated. I know that I'm feeling frustrated because I can feel tension in my hands and my heart is racing. So I'm going to take a moment to breathe. And she would see me do a deep breath in through my nose and out through my mouth. And she'd see me start to calm down, right? And then when she would get herself really worked up, we would be in a nice embrace. We could breathe together. But what's really amazing about breathwork with children is they have this tool really like well tuned in their body. And it's like the layers of life that kind of, filter it out and break it down. But kids naturally respond with breath patterns to support them. So if you ever hear a kid, having a tantrum and you hear them go,
Yeah.
and they do like that big double inhale and release, that's actually called the physiological sigh. That's their body naturally trying to bring their system down
Wow.
regulate. It's incredible. Like, children have all the tools. They've got all the answers.
That's
you
fancy.
know?
Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been cool. And now she's getting a bit older. We're playing with other breaths. Like, how would a butterfly breathe? How would a whale breathe? What color is a purple breath? And so you can get really playful with it. When I've done breath work with kids, what I found really supportive is not to say, hey guys, we're doing a breath work session, because
Yeah.
they don't care.
Right.
But we're telling a story. And so we use a breath, maybe like there's a dragon in the story. And so we do like a nice big exhale, and they don't know it, but they're regulating their nervous system. Their body knows it, and their body can memorize that response and that sensation of down regulation. And so that's what's really been a fun part of this journey for me, for sure.
I love that. I feel like they need to bring this into schools. It would be so powerful. Yeah. And they
Yeah.
don't fight this stuff. Like with her, all we really do is like smell the soup and cool it off. And she loves it. It doesn't
Beautiful.
always work 100%, but she will at least engage enough to, distract her for a few minutes from
Yeah.
whatever she's, handling at the time. But
Yeah.
she's very receptive. I think most kids are. I'm talking about a 6-year-old, so I can't speak for the older ones, but yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think like the earlier we can bring this in for them, it just as a reminder, because like when we think about when we get really anxious or depressed, it's like we feel like we've lost our power. And that's
Yeah.
ultimately what's happening, is we've lost our power. And so if we can remind these kids that actually, like, you've got it in you. It's not Tommy who's teasing you. It's you get it. You've got the power to change it.
I think it's so interesting because, you know, we were both part of a Kathy Heller container and learning that it's also all within us as well. It's easy to look at them and be like, well, they're more pure. Like, of course, but like it's inside of us too.
Yeah.
We've got the tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we spend, like, culturally, at least in North America, spend a lot of time on the external reasoning for why it's all not happening. And, even like really in those early days of my motherhood journey was like, if I just get, the right toy for her, or the right sleep sack for her, or the
Oh my
right
gosh.
sound machine, that's going to fix everything, obviously. And so it was like, no, Abby, if you just tune in to what is happening in your body, she's going to respond to that. And then we both get to settle down and
Oh my
settle
gosh.
in.
You're saying if you can work on regulating yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that's the one thing that I wish I knew before I was pregnant. And I mean, how wonderful, because, that I went through the journey that I did. I can reflect on it now and know that I wouldn't be where I am today or do what I'm doing today if I hadn't been through that experience, because I wouldn't be looking for the tools to build the systems, just like you're doing with mothers returning to work, right? But that's the piece that I wish I knew before I was pregnant, is how to tune into my body and understand how to regulate my system, because I
Mm.
really have seen such a change in how I can operate and support my family and support the people I love and around me just by tuning in and doing that.
So powerful. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. And it's not a surprise coming from the space that we just exited, but a year ago, I'd been like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no
Yeah,
way. There's no way. I need a gadget. I need a system. I'm doing something wrong.
totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I probably spent more money in the first 6 months of Elizabeth's life than I've like ever spent in my life.
Yeah.
Just in like getting the gadgets and getting the blankies and the
Oh
toys and
my
the
gosh.
blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah. Like, oh, I don't think that sleep sack is working. Should we look at this one that does this? And this one is, yeah. Oh my gosh, all the things. And well, we already have a swing, but what about a bouncy seat for the time when she doesn't want to be in this swing?
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to
Yeah.
get the kid to take a nap so you can breathe for a moment.
Right. Have a shower.
Oh yeah, right. Sometimes we go days, yeah. Yeah, but knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have done that either the first time. Like
Yeah.
I would make myself every day shower and get into some clean clothes, even if it's just a clean pair of pajamas,
Oh my gosh. One of my friends shared that that was her non-negotiable with her husband when they had their first, is she was like, the second you are home from work, I get a shower, I get clean clothes. And he worked night shifts.
Oh, okay.
And so for her, it was the start of her day. And I was like, what? That's something you can ask for? Like, I just had not
Yeah.
even occurred to me that that might be a requirement of my daily self-care. I was like, if I don't shower this week, I mean, who's going to tell?
Right. Like I'm
Just
not leaving the
my
house.
baby here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah. So
gosh.
now, yeah, if I knew what I know now, then.
That's exactly it. And it's like, even like you said, reading all the books and doing all the research, no one is talking about this stuff.
Mhm.
So it's like trying to get the word out beforehand. And the conversation I keep having is like, I don't want to rain on someone's pregnancy parade when they're like, I'm picking a name and I'm planning a baby shower and I'm designing a nursery and everything's going to be beautiful. And I'll take a birth class. It's like, but it's all going to be good. And it's like, yeah, a lot of it's going to be really good, but some
Yeah.
of it's not. And let me help you, because there's going to be moments where you're in it and you're like, yuck, this is
Yeah.
not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So it's hard when you want to inform, but not be a Debbie Downer. But
Yeah, you want to show up and offer support. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I have spent like time in the perinatal mental health advocacy space, and like when I first started out, meeting these pregnant moms and being like, if you struggle at all afterwards, give me a call. I'm here for you. And then it was like, oh, that's not really like the best thing to lead with. That's not the most
yeah,
supportive. But
yeah,
it is like, this is a really beautiful journey, and there's going to be so many moments. And I just want you to know I'm here for all of them, no
I
matter
love
what
that.
shape they take.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just having someone that they can go to and I hear you, I see you. Here's how I can support you. Let me point you to some other resources if I can't give you
Absolutely.
what you need in this space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I get so frustrated, like I said, because it's not just in the system to support women postpartum, especially here. So then in desperation, people are trying things and it's,
So
exhaustion.
much of our culture too is that like band-aid effect, and like the medical system is set up that way
Oh,
too,
yeah.
right? There's no preventative care, and same, there's no, not that we need preventative medicine for motherhood, but we do need this proactive care for mothers, and coming in and like, what does a support team look like?
Hmm.
What are the places you can ask for help on those days when you don't know what to ask for? Do you
Yeah.
know who those people are yet? There were all these resources that I found out a year, postpartum.
Yeah. Yeah.
But where were those when I was in those early days? They were there. I just didn't know about them because you're blinded by just keeping this little being alive. That's all you can
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. We're relatively new to the area that we're in. We moved, this is our home state, but a different part of the state. We had lived in another state for about 10 years. And I found out locally, we're in like the second biggest city in the state. So I know not all regions will have this kind of an offering, but there is a local organization. It's totally free. You do need to get on the wait list pretty early, but they provide you weekly free support for the first 12 weeks that you have a baby. And they'll come to your house and Do you want them to clean? Do you want them to do laundry? Do you want them to hold the baby so you can take a shower? Like they'll help with your older children. They'll do anything that you need. And I don't know if they come once or twice a week, but it's all volunteers, and which is why they can offer it for no charge. But it's just amazing that it's there, and they, it's not like out there, and you wouldn't know to look for it if you didn't know it existed. So
Yeah.
yeah, not
Yeah.
helpful after the fact.
But I mean, it is, yeah, good to share it. And there's a similar organization here where I am in North Vancouver, BC. And they're an incredible organization, and one that is like my full fundraising, purpose is everything I do is in support of that. Where similarly, they'll come into your home and hold your baby so you can have a shower or clean your kitchen or take you for a walk or, whatever it is that you need. And it was an organization that was referred to me when I was in postpartum counseling. And I still felt like I wasn't deserving enough
Oh my
to use
gosh.
the services, because I was like, but I have a husband. So I should be able to do this, right? Like I should be able to keep this baby alive and do all these other things. And so I think also sharing the resources, but also changing the narrative that we are all deserving of this support and this village and this care.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. We should all over ourselves is what I hear other people say. And it's so true. Like, I've got a supportive husband who splits tasks with me. Like, I should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, let's talk about the village, because we are not meant to do this alone. And you can look at other cultures, and I will totally get the regions wrong. I believe it's Korea, where your last month of pregnancy, you move home with your parents, and your parents just take care of you, and you stay there. And then you stay in bed for like weeks after delivery, and everyone just helps you out and takes care of you and takes care of baby. And it's like, people have figured this out in other places in the world. And here we are.
Yeah.
Trying to do it.
Oh, there's like cultures all over the world where you literally change locations for all of the seasons, where it's like in pregnancy you're in one area, and then you have your baby, and in those early days you're in one area, and then afterwards you're with the families that are already well groomed, and they know how to best support you. And so there's a really great book, if you haven't read it, and for your community, Kimberly Ann Johnson's The Fourth Trimester. I
haven't
love
read
this
it,
book.
but I'm familiar with her. Yeah.
Yeah. And she talks about that too, about like, the villages that people lived in and the tents that you went to get different levels of support, because you need different levels of support through all the stages. And I just think that's really important for people to allow into their awareness, is that your life changes. There's no like, oh, I'll just go back to the way my life was before I had the baby. But that's just not there for you anymore, because your body is physiologically changed. Like on a cellular level, there's different things happening in your body now, and your brain works differently, and your hearing works differently, and your eyesight works differently. And so that gets to be okay, and it gets to be part of the thing. And I like, that was the piece that I keep coming back to, is that I spent a lot of energy trying to get back to who I was before.
Yeah.
But she's not there anymore, and that's okay. I can say goodbye to her, and I can have a grieving process for her and say, thanks, Abby. You served me so well up until this point, and now I get to be this new person to carry forward.
That's so beautiful. And if we all adapt that mindset, then maybe we would set down some of this bounce back culture, just from every aspect. And then you see the people on social media or on TV or whatever, and you're like, well, they did it, and it's like, that's just what you're seeing. You don't know what's actually happening behind the scenes. Yeah. Wish we could just set all of that down. And for someone, if they could have lovingly told me that, because I was like, again, 6 weeks, I'll go back to work. It'll be fine. I've got a baby at home. I'll be tired, but like, it'll be fine. It's like,
Yeah.
and I was trying to be fine, and I was trying to be pre-baby Shannon. And it's like that, like you said, that's not available anymore.
Yeah. She's just like putting on these other layers of like who you thought you were before. And that just gets heavier and heavier and heavier.
Oh my gosh.
And harder to shed.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who either thinks that they can do it alone and doesn't need the support, or says, I don't have a lot of support around me, and maybe they live somewhere where there's not a lot of support? Like, what do you recommend in those scenarios?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the framework you offered earlier of I see you and I hear you is a really important thing, because I think that is like the support that a lot of us need that we don't recognize that we need. And I know there's women who, that have said, I want to ask for help, but I don't know what to ask for. And
Mm,
that's so understandable and so relatable. Like somebody grieving, you want to
yeah.
help them and support them through that grief, but you also don't know what to offer. It's the same thing in parenthood. When someone has a new baby, people are like, I want to help you, but I don't know what you want me to do. Um, so to just circle back to building this village and finding these places of support is like the beauty of modern technology is there are a lot of inlets of ways to receive support virtually. Like you and I have never met in person, but we're having this beautiful conversation. So I think doing a little bit of research to know what resources are available for you. I mean, if you just go on Instagram and Google postpartum coach, there's probably a billion results that'll come up of people who will at least direct you to somewhere you can go for free resources.
Hmm.
There's like Postpartum International is a really incredible resource. They have a ton of information out there. There's a lot more maternal nonprofits cropping up, I think, as this conversation gets more widely shared as it needs to be. And also talking to other mothers in your community. Like when you see other moms, for the most part, I think generally people want to support and share and offer their love for you. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of like kind of, I think maybe it's the narrative from movies where there's like mom judgment and moms judging other moms. And I know that does happen. I do know that happens. But I think more often than not, moms want to help other mothers. I think
Yeah.
we're more of a community than we allow ourselves to be. And so that's what I would say is find a way to get online and look up any postpartum international resources, and talk to other moms. Just have the conversation, because there's going to be one person in a group who is comfortable sharing their story. There generally is at least one person. And if you can kind of tag on to what they say and hear that they're comfortable sharing their story, they might be comfortable if I reach out to them, right?
Yeah.
Making those kind of bridges, because not everybody's going to be comfortable sharing their story, but they might feel comfortable to ask for help when they need it if they've heard you share yours.
Yeah. I think the more we share our stories and the more people hear that it can be hard and it's okay and that I can ask for help, I think the better we'll all
Yeah.
be. And um, yeah, from my own experience, I will say there was a woman I didn't even particularly care for who I knew, but we ended up having babies very close together. And I saw her so differently once we both became mothers. I had compassion for her, even if she was not my person. Like I had compassion for her on a different level that when she came to me and she said, I know your daughter's in daycare. Do you have any suggestions? And I was like, yes, you need to call them because this is a great place. And I'm like, I don't want I had a really terrible daycare situation to begin with, and I didn't want anyone else to experience that. So I'm like, even though you're not my person, yes, call them. They're great. They should have a spot
Exactly.
for you. Yeah. So even if it feels uncomfortable, like, or someone seems unapproachable, like that mother aspect really softens us in a lot of ways, and we do
Yeah.
find that compassion for others. It's amazing how transformative it is. And the fact that we expect women to walk it solo is just so wild. It's so wild.
There's just like, when you think about, like, I think all the time about how incredible it is that we're like growing a human cell by cell within our body, and just like the energy that takes to do that millions and billions of dollars have gone into researching like 3D printers, which are now a thing of the past, but we're 3D printing inside of our body. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're doing it with no instruction manual and
Right.
no finances. We're just doing it.
Right.
And it's like, that reflex that a woman in a coma can birth a baby because she has this natural reflex to do it, that our body already knows what to do. I think that is like the key, the thing that's been taken out of our North American society is we all have this like detachment to our body.
Yeah.
And that's the opportunity here, is like use breath, use meditation, use yoga, use time in the trees, but get quiet and get curious about what is happening in your body, because that is the way that you support the community around you as well, as if you are like tuned in and turned on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as mothers, I know you've seen it too, the better you are in that space, the better your kids are. And the better your
Totally.
partner, is, your whole house can change. Yeah. So if you're handling it in your house, imagine how that spreads out into the community around you.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
ripple effect is huge. It's massive.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And if someone can do this in their pregnancy and start the practice beforehand, amazing. I do have a question though about breath work and
Yeah.
pregnancy, because there are so many things, you need to alter a little bit with pregnancy. Do you suggest making any, if someone wants to implement this in their pregnancy, would they alter the strategy at all?
There are different theories on breathwork and pregnancy. I personally don't do active breathing during pregnancy. And here's why. We're so connected to this being growing inside us that when we're shifting how our nervous system responds to things in a big way, it also is shifting the physiology, of the baby. And so what I recommend is starting a practice before you get pregnant, because then your system is already used to it. It's already got the pathways built in, the neurotransmitters are connecting and it already knows what to do. I do have clients who are pregnant and we do breath meditations. And so what that involves is more of a yoga nidra practice in the beginning. We're still connecting with our body. We're allowing just our natural breath to lead the way and our body to naturally breathe itself. We might do a little bit of active breathing in that we're maybe like elongating and exhale a little bit, but it's not going to be the same kind of breathwork experience where you're trying to like really shift yourself into an upregulated state or vice versa, just because that relationship, that dynamic between baby and mama is very delicate.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend starting the practice beforehand. And there are so many options for supporting pregnant mothers with like a breath meditation or a yoga nidra practice that's going to do a lot of the same neural reprogramming of allowing them to find that downregulated state, allowing, the sympathetic to turn off and the parasympathetic nervous system to come back online.
That's so, important to point out. Like a lot of things, if you were a runner before, it's okay that you continue, but don't start
Exactly.
training for a marathon in your first trimester. Otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so true.
Exactly.
Can you imagine if we all really began to prepare for pregnancy the way we prepare for all the other things in life?
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That shift would be so incredible. And I can't even imagine, half the time we're just like, oops, I'm pregnant, like,
Yeah.
I mean, or it happened. And now we go to the appointments and do the things. And
Yeah. I think when I think about like the women too, when you hear the stories that like, I didn't know I was pregnant
oh
until
my gosh,
I gave birth or until I was 6 months along and stuff. And just like, yeah, again, that detachment from our bodies, is just so much more prevalent, I think, than it is maybe in other societies. But that's the piece that I wish I had. And I don't know, like, okay, maybe I'm like introducing a whole new concept here.
let's go.
Maybe it's like, for me, I'll say I had a lot of body image issues growing up where, as many women in our society do, where I was like very conscious of my size and I'm 5'2". And so, gaining any amount of weight is really obvious. And you're surrounded by all these really beautiful girls in school. And so you're just really conscious of your body image. And so as a result, I feel like I kind of shut off my awareness of my body. And I was like, I know I'm going to be known for my mind instead, because this is like, I don't know how to control this. I don't want to feel it. It doesn't feel good. Get me out of my body. And so then it wasn't until I got pregnant the second time that I was like, oh, this feels different. Oh, this feels, and like actually taking the time to notice what was happening in my body. Anyway, I just made that connection.
That is
right now in this conversation.
No, it's so powerful though. It is. And there's so much in what you just said, that we could go on and on and on. But I wonder how many women detach for the reasons that you stated or other reasons of, and especially like I was a teenager in the early 2000s, like, which was not a very body positive time. I remember seeing the look at Jessica Simpson. She looks like a whale. And it's like, no, she doesn't. What,
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us in my age range here have probably done similar things. And I know when it came to my birth, I was not dropped into my body at all. And I
Mm.
wonder, I mean, both of them really, both births, I wonder if I had been more connected
Yeah,
to the whole
totally.
experience. Wow. That was so loaded what you just said. Wow.
Episode part 2.
Yeah, seriously. I know, right? Let's come back for more. Wow. 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 The implications are so huge. And it's like, I know we do a disservice to ourselves, but like from the beginning, not just in your pregnancy and in your postpartum, but just like from the beginning. If
Yeah. Yeah, like
yeah.
what if we were given all these tools as a young girl? Like this is, and it's hard because I know there's also women in the conversation who, maybe that is not physically an option for them to be
Yeah.
able to have a baby. And I thought that was me too, to be honest. Like doctors said, you've got this bicornuate uterus, it's shaped like a heart. And I was like, wow,
Oh,
that's really beautiful. And they said, no, that means a baby's not going to grow in there because
wow.
I had this bone sticking down. And so I just didn't really think that that was going to be in the cards for me then. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, my life is going to look different. But I do wonder, like, if we were just given the tools to be more in our body and less in our
Mhm.
head from early on, how much more we could do and have access to and create and connect with others who,
Mm.
feel dysregulated and support them.
Yeah. I agree.
Right.
So, what are some other things that people can do for like a nervous system reset?
Yeah. Anything that, okay, so this is something I think is really important is just your own level of awareness around like how your body responds to things, because everybody has a different level of trauma, their epigenetics that all inform your nervous system responses. So the first place I would start with people is getting them to really understand what types of stressors they do respond to, how their body responds to that stress. So if they notice their breath gets really shallow, if their palms get sweaty, if their heart rate is activated, some people, feel an urgency to shake or to shout, just understanding what is the norm for your body right now. And what would be the ideal situation, in that container with Kathy, you put this vision forward as like,
Yeah.
you need to know where you're going to in order to know which direction to turn. So what would my ideal response to a situation be so that I can then bridge that gap from where I am now to where I want to get to? Some really beautiful nervous system regulation techniques are breath, like a nice deep inhale in through the nose, out through the mouth with pursed lips. Like having that pursed lips exhale really turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest, restore, digest, that response. So just doing a few rounds of that. Again, even you can do it in conversation with someone. It can be
Mhm.
a little subtle. It doesn't have to be a big, like, hey, hold the phone, I got to go do this thing
Yeah.
in the back room. Do it in conversation. This is a silly one I do with my daughter, which I think no one's going to see my face when I do this, but where we do the lion's breath, because sticking
Mm.
our tongue out really activates our vagus nerve, which again is just going to help turn on that parasympathetic. So like really squinching up your face on the inhale and then doing a big exhale with your tongue out and
Yeah.
like kind of, expressing this air like a lion growling. Using any kind of that tongue out stimulation is really great for just releasing the energy and releasing that sympathetic response so you
Mm.
can engage more and settle more in your social nervous system response as well. And any kind of movement, like we move energy in our body, and that's really like anxiety and depression is like a hyper arousal and a hypo arousal. response. And so it's like energy getting stuck in these places where it's like stuck spinning really high, or it's like stuck and kind of buried below. And so if we can move that energy through sound, being, making silly sounds, doing audible exhales. That's why people sigh, because like subconsciously it makes them feel better. Moving, dancing, shaking, and then through breath, just like moving that breath, that's how we can move that energy and bring our nervous system into this more regulated place.
I love that. Those are so helpful. And just the idea that you can move and release the energy, because I don't think I ever realized, until more recently, like I can release it. I don't have to carry it or spiral in it or,
Thank you
yes.
for saying that, because that is like, I don't script any of my meditations when I'm working with a client. It's a collaborative process. So it's what you're experiencing in the moment. But the line that comes through most often to me when I'm working with people is like, you have to exhale to inhale. And so this idea, you have to let go. It is your responsibility to let go, because you cannot receive otherwise. And we, as a society, as a human, we try to like hold it all, but we're just these
Yeah.
little bodies. We can't hold it all. And so just like, what if you let it go? What if you put it down? And if you really have to pick it back up again, pick it back up. But you don't have to. You could just let it go and let the earth deal with it.
On so many levels, there's so much that we can set down and release. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. Wow. Like I know this to be true, but hearing you say it, I'm like, yeah. And you could set that down and you could also set that down. And like you said, if you need to pick it back up, you can, but even just to give yourself a few moments or a few
Give
days or
yourself that
whatever.
pause. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, what if you just gave yourself space for a second?
Mm.
And what could happen in that space? And also, nothing needs to happen in that space. We don't have to hold on to this urgency that like, because we put this one thing down, we have to pick up something else. So we can just put it down and walk away. And that could be okay too.
You are telling my story right now, because going from like high achieving, do, when I got laid off, I was like trying to fill my plate back up. I was like, okay, well, I'll make sure the house is clean and I'll do this and I'll run all the errands and I'll do all the things. And it took me months to catch myself and be like, no one is telling me I have to do this. I have no pressure from anyone else, not my spouse or whatever. No one is telling me I have to fill back up my day. And we've had a lot of life happen. The last 3 years since the pandemic have been a lot for a lot of us, but we've had a lot of life happen on top of it. And I'm like, I can just have space for once. And, because always jumping from one thing to the next, but just like the gift of space. And like you said, not having to pick something else back up.
What do you think was the activator for you to notice that you didn't have to fill that space again?
I think being a student of Kathy's and being in that energy helped me a lot. But it was
Beautiful.
like, I just felt myself reaching back towards the old cycle of just keeping myself busy and doing and not really digging into what was at the root. And for me, it was a huge awakening that my worth and my value were not tied to the things that I was doing and that I was inherently worthy. It makes me emotional because I just want everyone to know it. Like, we are all inherently worthy and we don't have to do the things. We are not the things that we do, So, yeah.
That Shannon, that was really beautiful.
Mm,
Yes, that knowing that we are not the things we do, right? And it's like
yeah.
that this conversation first started when you were talking about, the moms that we are and who we were before and who we get to be after, and that I am a mom, but I'm also all these other things. And my motherhood is informed by the other things that I am, and the other things that I am are informed by my motherhood self. But that also I get to just be here in this chair, supported by this chair, simply because I'm here in it. Like I didn't have to pay a toll or solve a
Right.
riddle to be able to sit in this chair. I get to just be in it.
Yeah. Yeah. How often do we allow ourselves to be?
So
And
rarely. Yeah.
when you're not used to space, it can be shocking to your system,
Yeah.
and especially in an environment where everybody's working and I'm fielding questions of, oh, are you applying for jobs? And are you doing this? And are you doing that? And it's like, I know people mean well. They're not degrading me or what I'm up to, but it's like, you just feel yourself being pulled back into the
Yeah.
do.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the first thing people ask you when they don't know you is like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm Abby. What do you do?
Uh-huh.
Well, I human. I don't
Right.
know.
I
I
know.
don't
I know. And I don't know this to be true myself. I haven't been there, but I've heard if you ask people in Europe, what do you do? They, oh, I garden, I read, I do this.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I
So
like your
important.
answer better. I human. I like yours. Yeah.
I
If we
let
can
my
just all,
heart beat.
I know, right? I wake up, I breathe, repeat. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Sometimes I
Mm.
throw a shower in. No, just
Right.
kidding.
I try if I can, if it works. Oh my gosh. This
Oh.
was there's just so much here. You've shared a lot, but is there anything else that you didn't expect motherhood to change or shake up in you?
Yeah, I mean, I've shared the pieces about just coming into my body and understanding the importance of my community, and as someone who, uh, spent much of my life feeling like I had to do it myself because that was how I proved my worth, is that,
Mm,
motherhood is actually the thing you don't have to do yourself, even though you're growing the baby and you're birthing the baby, or uh, you don't have to do it yourself. And you
yeah.
get to ask, just because you're a human being, you get to ask for that help. And that's the piece that gets me emotional, is like that we all deserve to be able to safely ask for help.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mm.
Absolutely. That's beautiful advice as well. Is there any other piece of advice that you might offer to a mom at any stage in their journey?
If you feel the desire to online shop at 3 a.m, maybe just like hold a moment, take a breath, and then decide.
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh
that.
my gosh. I love that. I know. Like you said, it goes back to the answers that they're in here. We just have to give ourselves the space to access. And that's another thing that you're not giving yourself the gift of, is when you're filling all the space, there's not the ability to tune inward and
No, you
explore
can't
what's inside of
hear.
you.
And when,
Yeah.
again, like we've talked about this, when you think about the baby and the childhood, the natural response, they already know. They're responding from a place of pure response. There's no layer, there's nothing coloring. It's just like, my body wants to do this. And so, like, what would my 3-year-old self do to this?
Mm,
Maybe that's the question you get to pause and ask
mm.
yourself.
That's so interesting. Oh goodness. There's so many layers to this. I feel like we could talk for hours. There may be a part two. We may be coming back from part two. What do
Oh,
you do aside from, your breathwork practice, but what do you do for yourself to reconnect to yourself in motherhood?
yeah, definitely my morning meditation and breathwork is obviously a huge piece of my routine, and I really feel it when I don't do it. But I
Mm-hmm.
love being in the trees. Like, any opportunity I have to be in the trees, that's my jam. The irony being that, like, I can't keep house plants alive for anything, so I'm just going to go out to nature where they already are, and I'm not
Yeah.
doing any damage there. But if I can't get into the trees, then like maybe using my oils to just bring me there. And I love reading and researching. I love learning. I love using my brain and my heart. So just anything I can do that kind of utilizes those pieces, these conversations, like taking a walk with my best friend, that will change my entire month. I can have one walk with
Yeah.
her and everything is like good. I got a 30-day
Yeah.
window.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't take those little pieces for granted. Yeah. Sometimes, and my friend and I joke, we've known each other since we were 12, but we used to talk for hours before kids. And now it's like, I have 10 minutes in the car where I'm child free on the way to daycare. Do you have? And sometimes that's all it takes. It's just a few minutes of someone else
Yeah.
who gets you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So grab those
Yeah.
moments where you can, for sure.
Totally.
I love
Totally.
that. I love that. Well, where can people find you? How can they work with
Mhm.
you?
Yeah. So my website is wellnesscreek.ca, CREEK, like you're down by a little stream. And I'm on Instagram under the same name, Wellness Creek, although I'm consistently inconsistent on Instagram because I do tend to just measure my energy when I'm on social media and just notice when it's working for me and when it's not. But the website for sure, they can reach out, and I'd be happy to support in any capacity. And even if it's like, I'm one of those people that knows I need support, but I don't know where to find it, and I don't know where to turn. It's just send a message on Instagram. I will get it. And if you even just have to put like the troll emoji or just some expression, I'll know. It can be our code, right? You don't even have to say I need help. Just send something.
That's so beautiful, just to be open for that. And I think you made a great point. I think there are a lot of women out there on social media who would be open to that. I'm open for it too, by the way, if anyone needs it, and that's what I've told all of my friends when they have babies. I'm like, there are so many people who are going to want to celebrate with you and like revel in all the baby goodness. I'm like, I am the girl when you were like, this is terrible and I hate everything right now. I'm like, I got you 100% of the time. Call me.
Yeah.
If it's ugly at 3 a.m., call me. Like, give me a minute to answer the phone. But yeah,
but I will be there.
I will be there for sure.
Yeah. That.
This was also juicy. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. It's so good. It's so good. You guys have to check her out. Breathwork is really magical. Like I said, I've only done a couple of experiences, but it's had a profound impact. So thank you for sharing your gift and your time today.
I've loved this.
This has been so great. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. Please be sure to follow and rate if you love what you're hearing. And come follow me on socials at Having a Mom Moment on Instagram or on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you, so shoot me a message if there's something you particularly loved or something you'd like to hear about on a future episode. So you can message me on either platform or send me an email at havingamamoment@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. In case no one has told you today, you are amazing, you are loved, and I am so proud of the beautiful human that you are. Take care.